Welcome everyone to today's session on ISO IEC 42001 AI Management System. Topic sounds quite technical, but I hope our favorite presenter, Ashley, is going to break it down in simple words for us and explain why we have to look into it and how we can use it if we are adopting any AI solution in our work. I just very quickly before Ashley starts, I have enabled the Q&A feature, which you can see on the top bar. I will appreciate, I'm not quite sure how many people are going to join, but I will appreciate if you put your questions there. If you have any general comments, any other information you would like to share with everyone in the community, please put this in the chat so we can separate two things. Ashley will be presenting for around 20-25, maybe 30 minutes, and then the last 15 minutes we will have for a Q&A session. Please switch your mic and camera off because any noise, it goes on recording and it's really distracting for everyone. For everyone joining new, this session is organized by AI in Research Operation Group, a group for professionals supporting research in higher education institutions and learning how to use AI tools or have already projects where they adopt AI into existing workflows. Okay, I don't want to take a lot of time. Ashley, I would appreciate if you could introduce yourself, tell us what you are doing, and something about the certification, maybe what did you make and why it's relevant, and introduce the framework to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Just want to say hello to everybody as well. So my name is Ashley Blake. I am the founder of Research and Knowledge Exchange Support. So someone got their camera on, I hear myself echoing. So we support higher education institutions in terms of pre and post award support. And we also have moved into the realm of building AI systems that support pre and post award support as well. So in terms of agentic AI and using AI to gather information, share knowledge, and also kind of share our ideas and get feedback using AI systems as well. So in terms of doing the ISO 42001 framework, it kind of benefited us from an organization to make sure we're implementing AI safely to the organizations that we work with, and also giving feedback to organizations that are using AI and making sure that they're using AI in a safe and efficient way. So the certification, I done it through BSI, which is the British Standards Industry. So there, the course lasts around, it's a week. So it was a week course, started at 8:30 till finished at 5 most days. It's roughly around £2,500 per person to do the course. But I do know BSI, because I do know some people that have done it. I've recommended it to people before. If there is a group of people that are doing it from the same organization, then they will try and work out a group rate rather than charging per person. So what I'm going to do today is just kind of take you through what we learned in the standard, following the standard, and also how you can implement the standard if you're using AI. I'm assuming everybody here is probably an end user of AI, but what the standard goes through is if you are a developer, what you need to follow to make sure you're following the standard. If you provide AI systems, what you need to follow. And if you're a user of AI, how you need to follow the standard to make sure you're using AI safely. So, and also I'll share this presentation in the chat feature of Teams after as well. So if anyone wants to review it in their own time, they can do also as well. So what is ISO 42001? So it's the world's first certifiable management system standard written specifically for organizations that either provide or use AI or develop AI. And it just tells you how to set up and run AI and keep improving your AI management system. So it's familiar with the other kind of management systems and information quality management systems. So ISO 27001, which some of you might be aware of. So what's the purpose of the standard? The purpose is to provide a structured framework for managing AI and responsibly within organizations. And the scope is to apply organizations developing, deploying, or using AI systems to focus on governance, risk, ethics, and compliance. Key principles are transparency and accountability in AI use. And it works on a risk-based approach, so it knows there'll be risks in using AI, but it's showing you how to manage them effectively, and hopefully the reward outweighs the risk. And alignment with human-centric and ethical AI practices. So why does this matter? If we've got these practices in place, it can help build trust within inside your organization, supports regulatory framework, and promotes safe and effective AI integration into your organization. But why does it matter? It's a single globally recognized framework for governing AI, and it helps responsible innovation when using AI for such risks of bias, safety, privacy, security, supports human oversight and transparency. So the ISO framework is made up of 10 clauses, but 1 to 3 are kind of information clauses and what you don't need to follow. But clauses 4 to 10 are your responsible day-to-day management of how you manage tasks in an AI lifecycle, and are clauses that you should follow. So just to mention, you don't actually have to follow this standard. It's a best practice thing to do so. And once you do follow the standard, you can get organizations to come out and audit your AI systems and your AI framework to make sure that you've got a good management system in place and you can use it safely. So I'm just going to break down what the 10 clauses are. So clause 1 is your scope. So this defines the purpose and the applicability of the standard, focusing on managing AI systems responsibility. In clause 2 it's a list of key documents essential for implementing, interpreting, and applying the standard. And then 3 is the terms and the terminology of using the AI management system, so you're using it correctly and understand all the terms and conditions that are followed. So they're the first 3 clauses of the standard, which are just setting out the scope and the information that you need to follow when you apply the standard. So it's clauses from 4 till 10, which you would be audited on if required and if you followed the standard. So clause 4 requires the organization to understand internal and external factors, the interested parties, and the AI system's scope. So there you would set out why you're going to use the system, how you're going to use it, and the interested parties that you are going to use it internally or externally. 5 sets out your leadership roles. So this outlines the responsibility for top management to demonstrate a commitment, define a policy, and assign accountable people for AI governance. 6 is focused around planning. So that's identifying AI-related risks and opportunities, and setting objectives to ensure responsibilities of AI use. So 7 is support. So this is where you'll go through to cover the resources, the competency, communication, and documentation needed to operate the AI system. And then clause 8 details how to plan, implement, and control process related to AI deployment and development, and including lifecycle considerations. 9 is where you would evaluate performance. So you're evaluating the performance of the AI system and making sure it's on track and effective. And 10 is for improvements. So this is where you set up guides to identify any non-conformities, if there are errors in the system, and take corrective action, and pursue continual improvement of the AI management system. So they're the 10 clauses that make up the ISO framework. And like I said, 4 to 10 are the clauses that you would have to follow if you chose to follow the standard. So why do clauses 4 to 10 matter? As mentioned, clauses 1 to 3 are informative, so they're giving you the scope and the background of the framework and what you need to follow, and they're not subjected to any audit or compliance evaluation. So clauses 4 to 10 matter because they form the core of the aims, which is the AI management system, and they define the mandatory requirements organizations must meet when they follow the system. They focus on governance, risk, operations, and continued improvement. And they can be audited by certified bodies to make sure that you're following the system correctly. So when you have the ISO framework, you have a conformity, which means you are following the system's rules, and you have a non-conformity, which shows you're not following the system's rules, and you would need to perform a corrective action. So a conformity in this case would be when a process, activity, or outcome meets the requirements set out by the standard, policy, or procedure. So staff are trained on how to use AI tools and documented workflows are followed correctly. So that's conforming to a section of the standard. A non-conformity would be where there is failure to meet one or more specified requirements. This could be due to missing procedures, errors in practice, or lack of oversight. So an example of that would be AI-generated outputs are used in funding applications without any human review, breaching internal controls. So non-conformities must be identified, recorded, and corrected to ensure continuous improvement and compliance. So here, I'm just going to take you through a brief case study of following the ISO framework and how you would follow it if you were the university research team and you were using Microsoft Copilot. So there are some people where you might feel because you're using a system like Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT that you don't need to follow the standard. You still do, because the standard is based on how you're using the system. It's not based on the system that you're using. So in context, if you were using, say, Microsoft Copilot and you wanted to look at clause 4, a UK university research team, you're going to discover why you're going to use Copilot. So you adopt Copilot to draft funding proposals and summarize grant conditions. The team maps out how AI is used in pre and post-award processes, identifies key stakeholders to make sure they're aware of the system, how it's going to be used, and why they're using it. That is how you would set out clause 4 in terms of context. And then leadership, so the Director of Research and Innovation signs off an AI policy for responsible use, appoints an AI lead, and ensures buy-in from academic departments and IT governance. So that's the leadership around the tool that you're going to be using and making sure that you've got buy-in and sign off on an AI policy. So the key point of having your AI policy is so everybody knows what to do in case there is a non-conformity or how they're going to be trained on the system moving forward. So planning, the team evaluates risks, so incorrect summarization of funded terms and opportunities. But also, does the AI provide time saved and document review? So yes, there is a risk that the AI could incorrectly give you information, but does the time saved outweigh that? And there are ways that you can use the standard to make sure errors are cut out. So your objectives are set, and you're going to be doing budgets 20% quicker and draft budgets 20% quicker using Copilot, and you've got guidelines for human review to be introduced. So clause 7, that will set out your training sessions. So that's training sessions are run for staff using Copilot. Clear documentation is created, including prompts, response handling, and when to escalate to a human expert. IT ensures access and provisions are in place. So they're the first 4 clauses of the standard that you would follow. So your context, that is going to lay out why you're using the system and how you're going to use the system. Then leadership is you're going to get leadership buy-in from the Director of Research in this case, but also from senior management team around you. And you'll appoint an AI lead and you'll have an AI policy in place. Planning, so what you expect the tool to do, how it's going to help, what the return on that investment is going to be, whether it saves time or doing things in a cheaper way, and making sure you've got the guidelines for human review to be introduced. Then you've got training sessions for the staff, so how to use Copilot, how to use the correct prompts to make sure they get the required answers, and how you would handle any responses to the system working in terms of it working well or not working well, and how you would escalate that to a human expert. Then following the same case study, so AI is embedded into your workflows with clear guardrails. For example, Copilot can assist with drafting, but not finalizing financial claims or contracts. it prompts templates, and there's a human in the loop checkpoint that are built into your standard operating procedures. So performance evaluation, so that's key. We can't just put something into error and blindly believe it's true. So our usage would be reviewed on a monthly basis. So is it saving time? Are there errors? And make sure we're collecting feedback on a regular basis and that it's being logged into our key performance indicators to make sure that we can improve the system moving forward. And improvements, an issue was raised where Copilot was suggesting ineligible costs. The team logs this, updates prompt guidance, and refrains users from using the system. Lessons feed into the AI usage policy, and you share training data and training resources to show that you've updated the system, and this is how the system should be used in future basis. So they're the clauses 8 to 10, which just work on the operation, so how you're going to be using the system and how you expect to use it, and making sure you've got human checkpoints in there if required. And that should all be built into your standard operating procedures. And then your performance evaluation to make sure you're evaluating the system to make sure it's working correctly, if it is saving time, and if there are errors, how you're correcting those errors. And improvements, when you are making improvements, you're updating your usage policy to show that these improvements have been made and how you've done the system and how you've made those improvements and why. So implementing the system following those key clauses will hopefully build trust, reduce errors, support scalability, and support responsible AI use in your organization. So here I've just set out some key points. Sorry, my head went too far. So here I've just set out some key questions in terms of what would be a non-conformity on each clause and how we would remedy that non-conformity in each case. So for clause 4, for the context of the organization of why we're using the AI system, the question would be, we've clearly identified how and where we're going to be using the tool, in this example, Copilot, in our processes. And that's why we're moving forward with the tool. But non-conformity would be where the team uses Copilot in proposal writing without formal mapping, AI usage, or identifying stakeholders. So how would you remedy that? You would conduct a process mapping exercise and stakeholder analysis to document all AI touchpoints, and you update it annually or more frequently if required. So in terms of leadership, the question would be, so has leadership formally committed to responsible AI use and communicated expectations? So you would be non-conforming to the standard if you've got no AI policy and there's no senior accountability and no one has been assigned to look after the AI tool and make sure it's giving correct responses. And if it isn't, how that's managed. So the remedy would be to develop an AI policy approved by senior management and assign a named lead to oversee compliance and awareness. And that person would be who you contact if there is ever an issue with your system or it's not giving you the answers you would expect it to give you. So in terms of planning, so have we assessed risks and set objectives for AI use in our team? So you'd be non-conforming if the team uses Copilot without assessing risks like inaccurate summaries or hallucinated funder terms. As we know, AI can hallucinate and sometimes give us wrong answers. So we want to try and cut that risk down as much as we can. So to remedy that, we would complete a simple AI risk assessment for Copilot tasks, set measurable goals, and to address accuracy, improvement, and time saved. Question 7, in terms of support. So do our staff have the training, resources, and guidance to use Copilot effectively and responsibly? You would be non-conforming to the standard if users are unsure how to handle inaccurate responses or when to involve a human reviewer. So that would be a case of if you've got no processes in place or there's no training, but you would remedy that by providing short training sessions and create standard usage procedures and create a Copilot prompt guide for escalation points. So clause 8 is around operation. So do we have operational controls in place to ensure AI is used correctly in research workflows? So you'd be non-conforming if Copilot is being used to suggest grant costings without proper human checks. So we always need that human oversight. How you would remedy that non-conformity would be to update workflows to require human sign-off before any AI-generated text or figures are used in submissions. Clause 9, performance evaluation. So question, are we monitoring, reviewing how well AI tools are working, identifying any issues? So you'd be non-conforming if there's no feedback mechanism and issues are reported informally or not at all. So how would you remedy this? You would introduce a quarterly AI usage review, meeting, and a feedback log to track performance of time saved and the error rate required. And then the last, clause 10, so improvement. So your question is, are we learning from issues and making changes to avoid future non-conformities? So you'd be non-conforming to the standard if a recurring issue with Copilot suggesting eligible cost is unresolved and not formally documented. And the remedy to this would be log all issues, implement prompt revisions, and update SOPs and training materials based on lessons. So I think, to me, the standard sets out a clear guideline of how we would move forward using AI and making sure we've got all of the processes and procedures in place to making sure that we're using AI safely to ensure that we're getting buy-in from organization-wide stakeholders and also us as ourselves as a team using AI. So what are the pros and cons of implementing ISO 42001 framework? So the pros are, it's going to build trust and credibility. People are going to understand how we're using AI and why we're using AI. It will improve risk management, so it will help identify, assess, and mitigate ethical, legal, or operational risk. And it supports scalable adoption, so it provides a structure for safe AI integration across teams and projects. So there obviously are cons to following the standards as well. It is resource intensive. So if you just think about the times of having, maybe you would need an AI policy manager who would be making sure all of your AI systems, the AI system you're using is working effectively. You would need to actually upskill your staff in using AI or using whatever system you choose to use, which is Copilot in this instance. And then you've also going to limit flexibility. So you're going to have formal procedures can slow down rapid exploration or informal AI tool use. But to me, that's not really a con. It is in a way. But if people are using AI outside the framework in your organization, that's also a big risk as well. If people are just ad hocly using ChatGPT or Copilot with no framework in place, maybe they're not sure on the information that they're putting into the tool is safe to put into the tool, where this framework allows that and makes sure you're using AI in an ethical way. And it's an early stage learning curve. So it's a new standard and it will require change. So even from when I've done the standard in April, there's been a few changes to the framework since then, which I've implemented into this PowerPoint. So what is the operational risk if we don't follow the ISO standard? So organizational risk is potential for AI systems to negatively affect the organization's strategic objectives, reputation, operations, compliance, or stakeholder trust. So these examples in a university setting would have reputational damage if AI misinterprets funder rules, causing grant errors or non-compliance. Data breach, so sensitive research data processed by AI tools without proper safeguards. Ethical breach, AI system produces biased outputs affecting quality in funding or recruitment decisions. Financial loss, incorrect AI-generated costings submitted in the research bid, and regulatory non-compliance, failure to meet funder or legal requirements due to unreviewed AI outputs. So for me, I think anybody using AI, and for myself as a company that builds AI tools, I think it's important that we use the standard, and I would always stress to any organization that we work with to follow the standard, and any tool that we build would always be built following the rules of the standard as well. But again, the standard isn't something you have to follow, it's just something that you can choose to do for best practice, which helps manage risk. Any questions? stop sharing.
Hi everyone. If you have any questions, this is your time and opportunity to ask Ashley directly. Please, I'm still recording the session just for purpose of creating a longer written summary, but this will be not recorded, not uploaded on YouTube. On this recording, so and as well put the question into the Q&A. Okay, there was one question very quickly, Chris. One question that was if the presentation will be disseminated. Yes, after the session, we'll prepare a short summary and put in link into YouTube on the group's chat. The longer summary, it's available via newsletter because LinkedIn is restriction how many characters you can put in on a post. Chris, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, hi, good afternoon. I just wanted to ask, how long did it take you actually to complete it end to end?
So it's a week course. So it's a week
No,
course.
I mean the course itself is fine, right? But what it was is that you already explained the course was a week, but it was more the implementation of the 42001. That was what I was.
Oh, okay, yeah. So for myself personally, I'm a big AI enthusiast. So I got into AI before I was working in that space. So I was aware of. Have you heard of the EU AI Act? You heard of that at all, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So for me, so in terms of following standard, I knew a bit about the standard already, and I've been following the standard. So it was just to get that formal process in, and learn it from BSI myself, as a person. But I think roughly it probably took about a month or two for me to get grips to this with the standard and how to implement it and how to use it and to make sure I'm following the correct terms and conditions and guidance correctly.
Second question with that, if you don't mind, sorry, I just wanted to find out how many people did you do it? Did you do the, well, I'll call it a project. Did you undertake the project with, or was it just yourself?
So there was 4 of us in total from my organisation that done the same training.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Amma?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you for your
Yes.
presentation. My question is, did you consider any of the controls listed in Annex A when you did your implementation?
Yes, of course. So the control framework is what's listed in Annex A and the controls that you need to conform to when you are completing the framework and following the framework.
Okay, but did you have to design any new controls, or were they sufficient for your application?
So no, so we, like I said, so we had built our tool to follow the framework. So in terms of what we were doing, we didn't have to change anything, just a few minor things around training documentation, and making sure that we were reviewing the standard, reviewing our tool more than yearly. So we review ours on a quarterly basis. But again, that time frame would be set out in your own internal policy and how you feel fit to review your own AI tool or your AI usage.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I don't see any question in the chat. Anyone has a question?
There's some questions in the Q&A, Hannah.
Okay, I'm not quite. Oh, sorry. I see the question now. So there is the first question. Actually, if you can open as well, you can see at the same time from Madeline. Is there separate implementation guidance for the Annex A controls, like how there is an ISO 27002 implementation guidance for ISO 27001? Okay.
Yes, there is a separate Annex implementation guide for that. I'll actually share that in the chat with you, with everybody if they like, with the presentation at the end.
Okay, thank you. The next one is from Boriana. How to apply the principles when staff and students use AI communication for supervision, feedback, collaboration. How we can make sure this can promote trust, clarity, and ethical practice while students are using it on day-to-day basis.
A day-to-day basis. Okay, so if they're using it on a day-to-day basis, I feel in terms of for communication, what are you referring to?
Hi, I'm sorry. In terms of
Yeah.
communication, yes, thank you
Yeah.
for taking my question, first of all, and thank you for the presentation. Okay, so first of all, on our VLA, we have lots of discussion forums, we have a lot of information, students need to participate, collaborate, work, co-create things, and they use all sorts of AI, and they are in fact encouraged to use all sorts of AI, particularly in project management when I do my classes. So my question is, I mean, it's all good. We could use these standards for some of the AIs we promote to use widely throughout the institution. We can use the standard you're talking about. But if it's a day-to-day communication, responding to students, them working on things and using AI, how can we actually make sure that they are meeting the requirements of, the standard?
So are you using a tool to do this communication? What AI tool are you using?
Well, those who are free and available and new. Sometimes we encourage students to experiment and find new tools which are useful for project management or for some of the other specialist subjects.
Okay, well, if you are, and I think this is the kind of the way that the framework is set out. So a lot of people are using AI, but you're just using it. It sounds like you're using it on an ad hoc basis.
Exactly.
Yeah. So where you're not. Sorry, someone's mic still.
Yes.
Could you please switch off, everyone? Could you please check that your mic is switched off? Thank you.
Yeah. So if you're using ad hoc tools in terms of how you're using the tool would determine if you're going to follow the standard. If you are just, for example, using a free AI tool to communicate or to, say, create an image or help you draft an email or create a video, I don't think the standard would necessarily that's what the standard is trying to apply to. The standard is following organizations that are using a tool at an enterprise level, so they do have that scope to manage the data of what they're putting into the AI system, which is key. And I think that's why you're probably seeing a lot of most organizations are going down the enterprise route of using that rather than just having ad hoc AI tools being used in silos.
Yes. Okay. So basically, we have chatbots which are useful for English language purpose, and they're specially developed with some of the algorithms of ChatGPT or others, and they've been adapted to the needs of the university and developed for that purpose. So
Yeah,
then we can actually make
follow
sure the standard.
Yeah, you follow the standard. So I would assume in that instance you have access to all of the data and all of the questions that you're putting into the chatbot.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so therefore, when you're reviewing it, it would be a case of where you know why you're using it. So is it a case of where it's just a self-service tool, where it's saving time for the students and it doesn't need that human response? So on that case, you would then put an AI policy together to detail how the chatbot comes up with answers. Is it referring to information that you've provided it, or is it pulling information from the internet? Where is it getting that information source from that is providing the answers? So you'll just be testing that to say, okay, the information it's answering, so you could ask it 10 questions, look at the answers that you're being given, make sure they actually relate. I would score those out of 10. So 10 being the best and obviously 1 being the worst in terms of the information that it's replying back. Then making sure, is there a way that, for example, if you ask the same question and you just maybe have a subtle change in wording, does it give a different answer, or does it still notice that nuance and give the same answer? If that's the case, then you would need to train the students on how they actually ask those questions to make sure, and then you could have a standard prompt response. So you could say, these are the prompts that you need to ask, and you need to ask it in this manner. For example, with our AI system that we use, I had someone testing it the other day around track, and the AI didn't pick up the difference between when someone asked it what's a submission time and what's the submission deadline. And it was just that word of deadline that made the two same questions, but just that one word made the AI give it a very different answer. So they're the type of things that you can maybe need to correct so it can just pick up all language uses.
Okay, excellent. I understand better now. And one last question, please. I mean, how would you help me to kind of phrase my request for doing the ISO course to my senior management team so they can justify the expenditure and eventually maybe have some more colleagues?
I think I'm flattered. If you want to drop me a message, we can have it on LinkedIn. We can have a chat personally. But I think the ISO framework is, if you're using AI, it's important, and especially if you're using AI, I think the main things that we spoke about, it's not just financial cost; it's a reputational risk, an organizational risk, and there's also the risk of people not using it safely and not knowing what information to put into the system. So if we are going to use AI, we want to use it to the best of our ability, so it does save time and there's a return on the investment. And if you don't follow that standard, then you might be at risk of that.
Yes, and just last thing which I thought about when you mentioned insurance, Lloyd's now have developed some insurance policies, obviously for organizations against mistakes, errors from AI. Do we have such policies in the higher education sector, or insurance policies, or insurance or practices to take on insurance policies?
There are some. I don't want to name any names. I don't want to creating favoritism to one and not the other. But yeah, there are those type of policies around, and I think the framework will help you do that also as well if you follow the ISO standard. So if you are following the standard, so if you are following the internationally recognized standard out there, that will also help in terms of when you are being insured for AI misuse or AI mistakes. If you don't have that standard in place, then the insurance company might say, well, you're not using AI in the best way possible, and of course a mistake was going to happen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barana. Very, very good questions. We have the next one for Harin. How prevalent is the adoption?
Is the adoption of the standard, or?
Harin, I understand of the standard, but if...
Yes, it's a standard.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Like I said, from what I'm aware of the standard, I believe a lot of organisations are adopting it, and in terms of using it side by side with the EU AI Act, which states that anybody using AI should be trained on AI if they're using it in terms of helping their role in the workplace. I think it is not prevalent at the moment, where there's not a lot of people that know about it. There are people that do, but from what I can see from being in the sector is that it is growing. A lot more people are finding out about
it. Harry?
Thank you. If I may ask a follow-up question, are you aware of any funding available for organizations, higher education institutions who are looking to adopt the standard?
I'm not, but a good place that I always look. Are you based in the UK?
Yes.
Yeah, so the best place that I always look. Have you ever looked on Bridge AI, which is linked to Innovate UK?
I can check.
Yeah, so have a look on Bridge AI. So they're part of Innovate UK, but they're AI arm. So they have a lot of grants on there, and they also have a lot of good free courses as well that you can use to kind of follow AI and implement AI safely and use it safely as well. So I think that would be the best place to start. But to your question, I don't know any grants that are available for anybody that would want to do standard.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Harin. Mani, there's a question from Mani. At what level within units is ISO IEC 42001 certification typically expected to be provided at institutional level, or also potentially at constituent parts of a university? Examples, IT or research services.
Well, I think it depends really. So I would say obviously IT will play a massive part into using AI and implementing AI into your organizational workflows, especially if it's linking to other systems that you already use. It could be your finance system, it could be your HR system. I think in terms of it should be at a high level institutional level first, and then it should trickle down. And I think the standard does state that, where you would need your directors or your of research or your head of finance. You would want their buy-in to make sure that you are got an AI policy and you've got all of the correct frameworks in place to actually use the tool. Or again, if it was a siloed use where you could just see that case of it being used in one specific area, then you could have that department, say, head looking at the framework and doing the framework and then trickling that down to staff.
Thank you. The next question is from Louise. I think one thing I worry about being someone based in professional services is that NAID training I write will be obsolete as soon as I write it. Yeah, it is worth making super basic training in these instances.
What do you mean it'll be obsolete, Louise, in terms of that you think AI is moving that quickly, but next week it's not valid, or?
I think that's one thing that I do that worries me a little bit. It may be that I don't need to worry about it, at which point that's something that's, And by the way, thank you so much for the talk. It's really interesting.
Thank you. So how are you using AI at the moment in terms of when you're creating training materials?
So it's not that I'm using AI to create training materials. It's if I generate training for people at the institution for how to responsibly use AI, is there the possibility that progression in these tools occurs quickly enough that any training that I write will be obsolete?
I think yes and no. I think there's no, unless we're working for someone like Google or Meta, from what I've come across, there's no real AI experts. We're all kind of learning as we go on, and these models and these change so quickly, and so will the guidance. So I think once we start using agentic AI, where we've got AI making decisions for us, obviously the training and the materials around that framework will change. But I still think you can use the sound principles of the standard in terms of just kind of regularly reviewing, making sure you've got a policy in place and how you handle things internally. And then you can just adapt it as the AI moves forward. You can just adapt your policies following that.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more last question. So I'm switching between different channels from Louise. I think that's we just had it. I think that was the last one, right?
No.
Okay.
It's just Ed. I think Ed's got one question. So
yeah,
so there's a lot in the framework. Sure. How would you recommend to roll this out so you don't scare? And I think that's a very good question, Ed. I think you do have that question where a lot of people are scared of AI in terms of, you hear a lot of things in terms of, is it taking jobs? Is AI really helping? So getting that buy-in is important, and I think the standard does do that in the sense of where if you get people's buy-in by showing them what the system can do and how it makes decisions. And for me, I always feel like you need to have, whatever you use AI for in the workplace, you definitely need some knowledge of your sector and area to use AI. I don't think someone just starting tomorrow looked at something like, let's say, ref or track, could use AI in the most efficient way without having that knowledge of how the processes in that area work. So I think it's just showing people the added value of where it's a task that takes you 5 hours, but with AI, it can take 2.5 hours. And I think that's how you would achieve the buy-in, where it's AI should be augmented. It's a case of that it works with you to give you better results. It's not something that you can just kind of set up on your own and just use with no prior knowledge of what you're using it for and why you're using it. So I think understanding the decision making behind AI and the way AI makes decisions is definitely how you can achieve buy-in.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashley. It was a brilliant session, very relevant, and thank you for making this simple and breaking down the complicated framework for us, so we can understand and look into it. I see here one hand from Elisa. Ashley, would you be able to take the last question maybe? But this is it. Okay,
Yeah,
Elisa, if you could go very quickly ahead, just one question, please.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was just wondering, in the example that you mentioned related to AI systems for funding bids, I was wondering whether this could be also feedback against success in the bid, but I'm anticipating that would require funders to provide that feedback and be compliant and happy to share, but I don't know whether the framework would include external stakeholders as well.
Yeah, so the framework does. So in terms of external stakeholders, it's just being transparent and making them aware that if you are using AI, what you are using it for, how you're using that information. I think that's key to always getting external stakeholders on board. And I think even, for example, if you are in the example that I gave, UKRI or a lot of research councils now state you can actually use AI in your grant application process, but you just have to be transparent that you have used it and where you have used it. But you can't use it to create an idea. You can only use it to kind of help in terms of making sure you don't lose any impact in what you're writing when you're trimming down your content to meet a certain amount of characters in terms of that application stage. So as long as you detail that you're using AI, what you're using it for, and you have made the external stakeholders aware of that their information will be going into the system and they're okay with it, I think that's the best way to go.
Thank you.
Actually, one more question that is very interesting here from Manuela. In case of research software development, example, small language models and small language models fully developed and deployed locally, is existing institutional enterprise system compliance with ISO cover and steward for these local tools or compliance has to be solved via other and ad hoc groups? I think this is a really interesting question as well.
So where is that question? Is it in the Q&A chat? Or is it...
Yes. And I'm realizing you have possibly, we have like a delay between the question from Manuela.
Yeah.
In Q&A, not in the chat, in Q&A.
Yeah, I can't see. Is it, the last question I have is Ed Bolton. The last question I can see.
The default to move to the top, Ashley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. In case of research software development and small language models. Oh, yeah. So in terms of that, yeah, compliance have to be sought via other routes. So I think that's why I use the case study that I use, because regardless of the system that you're using and how you're using it, even if it is at an enterprise level, you still need to make sure that you are following the ISO standard internally for your organization.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Manuela?
I hope yes. I hope yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Ashley, thank you.
Yeah. There is one final question. I'll just answer it. So yeah, it doesn't. Okay. It does align with the EU AI Act, but you don't have to. For example, I'd say the EU AI Act and the ISO standard, they are two separate documents, but they do have some similarities.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Ashley. Great session as always. Thank you everyone for joining the session. Would you actually I will open for people contacting you after the session if they have any question?
Yeah, of course. I'm always happy
Yeah.
to help where I can.
Okay, super. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.